Good evening viewers and welcome to the Flashpoint with Mariam Chaudhry. Today we are talking about countering terrorism with Sufism. They say Pakistan is a society facing an existential threat from extremism and radicalism. But that wasn't always the way it was. Once upon a time, South Asia was the hub of peace and harmony. They say mysticism and Sufism were ways of life over here. But can we turn back the clock and bring back those times? And can we use Sufism as a tool for bringing change back into society? Let's find out. Joining us today are Dr. Jameel Qalandar, who's a rector with the National Peace Committee and who's the chairman of the Kul Foundation International. Dr. Jameel Qalandar, thank you for joining us. As you heard in my intro, Mr. Qalandar, we're facing so much radicalization in Pakistan. Terrorist incidents have increased vastly. And there was a time when nothing of that sort was happening. And people are saying that this is basically rooted in ideological causes. Would you agree with that?
Terrorism actually is the cause and also the result of certain conditions. And what are those conditions? Those conditions are external and internal. An external condition, they are what? We can explain them in terms of frustration. And frustration, as McDougall says, leads to aggression. And also terrorism results from a low level of education, orientation, low level of
Dr. Qalandar, you're very right in saying that it results from low levels of education and illiteracy and frustrations in society.
Yes.
But is Pakistan a special case study? Because we are seeing a great spike in terrorist incidents in this country. And that wasn't happening there 10 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. And people are talking about how this is a phenomena which is linked directly to the conflict in Afghanistan and the ideologies which have been imported due to that conflict.
Actually, after when Afghanistan was invaded by Soviet Union, in those days it was they needed that some kind of hardliner they should be developed and powered in order to counter the Soviet Union invasion. In those days when Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and I was working with Karakoram, there was a person, namely Yusuf Talal, a new American Muslim, Muslim. He studied all the syllabi in religious madaris, and to my surprise, he removed all those things of philosophical nature, psychological importance from Dars-e-Nizami. He deleted. And I asked why, because he said that we are in need of focusing on countering Soviet Union and countering Soviet invasion in Afghanistan. So we have to put forward hardliners. And in the presence of these books, I think we can't develop.
So most people would agree that was a formal process, and because people were needed to fight the Soviets with a lot of zeal and with a lot of vigor,
yes,
hardliners were inducted.
Hardliners,
but now we need to reverse the process.
Yes, yes.
So the question is, can Sufism take us back to where we were before all of this happened?
Sufism, from the very beginning, from the days of Prophet, has been a very effective tool of curing all kind of social and psychological diseases. So Sufism is a very relevant what we call remedy in our folklore culture. Sufism is a part of our integral part of our life. Just like Bulle Shah, Rahman Baba, and Latif, Baba Shah Abdul Latif, Lal Shabazz Qalandar, Bari Imam, and the people, these shrines, they are often visited. There is a involvement, total involvement.
But a lot of the poor people go to the shrines.
Yeah.
But they go and pray at the shrines, but they don't know what Sufism is actually about, because there is no institution and there is no structure which is telling or teaching people how to go along the path of Sufism. So where does one go for such
Actually,
learning?
Sufism is a learning and teaching which is direct and indirect. And Sufism focuses on both these ways. When a person goes to a shrine And then he sees the environment, and of course in man is influenced by the by environment, because man is the product of environment. So when he sees off and on that environment, he is changed by the influence of certain factor present in that environment, that he undergoes a radical change. So each and every environment, of course, influences a person. So we have to take into consideration all those tacit influences generated by that environment around the shrine, which of course are more vocal, more explicit than the bookish knowledge which we receive in university, in colleges, in schools.
So, Dr. Qalandar, they say that once upon a time South Asia was the hub of Sufism.
Yes.
That we had a lot of Sufi saints and that a lot of people were practitioners. It was actually quite common.
Yes.
So what happened? Why did that culture disappear?
There is an approach which is a phenomenological approach. When there was a dialectical materialism in vogue in all the world, so in parallel to that current, there was in the Islamic world, there was a movement which I would say introduced by Ibn Taymiyyah in the subcontinent by Sheikh Ismail Shaheed, and Hijaz in Saudi Arabia by Abdul Wahab. These three, I would say, religious individual or personalities, they focus on the apparent, the visible, and then they denied each and everything invisible, esoteric, tacit, and behind the curtain. And they made a fallacy. What is that fallacy? They denied the existence of metaphysical probe into the ultimate nature of things. And they say that it is impossible to know the ultimate realities of things.
So if we make Sufism really simple for the layperson, how would you describe it? How would you say Sufism? What is Sufism for the average person?
Sufism is, of course, has two fundamental pillars or principles. One is that it is knowledge, and that knowledge is based on certain principles, certain well-defined principles. And it is also a practice. In order to make it my point more clear, I would say that Sufism is theory and practice. Theoretically, it is a science. It is a super science. I would say it is a transcendental science.
Yeah.
Probing into the ultimate nature of things, ultimate nature of realities. As the prophets say, Rabbi arini haqaiq al-ashyai kama hiya. O people, show me the ultimate realities of things. In another hadith he says, Rabbi arini wujuh al-ashyai. Oh my God, show me the real picture of things. So Sufism tries, it is an attempt to probe reality as it is. It doesn't rest content with phenomena, with appearances, with phenomenological world. But man is not
merely the body.
Merely the body. He has some fundamental basic substance, essence, which we call ruh or zat or self or ego. So what is the science which studies that real essence of man?
Okay. So Sufism is about, it's not about the body, it's about the soul, it's about the spirit, it's about the intuition.
Yes, about the permanent in man.
So we will ask you how we can help the average person, or how we can help the Pakistani society overcome violence with the spiritual dimension. But before that, we have to go on a break. Welcome back, viewers. We are talking about countering terrorism through Sufism. And right now we have online with us a scholar, Dr. Suhail Umar, who is a director with the Iqbal Academy in Lahore. Dr. Suhail Umar, thank you for joining us from Lahore.
You're welcome.
We'd like to ask you, because your subject of study is Dr. Allama Iqbal, and he's sort of a spiritual father for our nation. What does he have to say on Sufism and how it can be integrated into the Pakistani society?
Well, first of all, one must remember that Iqbal's whole project, his whole thought and his works in Persian, Urdu and English are integrally related to not only the theoretical side of Sufism, but the overall Sufi ethos, and an authentic understanding of Iqbal, his Iqbalian project and his complete work is impossible without finding and understanding its links with Sufism, both on the theoretical side as well as on the practical side.
And what does he have to say on Sufism?
What he had to say on Sufism, first of all, let me give you his own words. That he says that my object of my Persian poems and by large my poetry is simply to discover a universal social construction. And my philosophy is a direct development out of the experience and speculation of old Muslim Sufis and thinkers. This is, I am quoting Iqbal directly.
So, Dr.
If Iqbal himself claims that his whole philosophy is a direct development out of the experience and speculation of old Muslim Sufis, one can well understand what his deeper connections and underlying ethos of
how do we link
with relation to Sufism.
So, Dr. Sohail, how do we link that to the Pakistani society, which is struggling to cope with terrorism nowadays? How can we relate?
Exactly. Because Iqbal, throughout his Urdu, Persian works and English philosophical documents, has referred by name as well as by implication the basic Sufi worldview, which sees the hand of the Creator in the other, both the religious other, the cultural other, and in any way which is different from you, and recognizes the same spirituality, the same core human values and the same core spirituality in the other. Once this perspective is cultivated, it automatically translates into attitudes, behaviors and dealing patterns with the other, which is our basic problem at the moment. When Iqbal says that one's tongue with ill speech is a sin, the disbeliever and the believer are alike creatures of God. Humanity, human respect for human reality, be conscious of the station of humanity. The slave of love who takes his path from God becomes a loving friend of both disbeliever and believer. He is giving us a very potent message, Ihtaram-e Adamiyat, Ihtaram-e Admi, which we need very much at the moment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sohail. Dr. Qalandar, getting back to the topic. As Dr. Sohail said, that we need to alter behaviors in the society and inculcate an ethos of generosity and kindness. So how does an average person go on that path when he doesn't have any institution or any teacher or any source where he can learn that from, when we talk about Sufism in particular?
Well, there is no problem with the public people. If you study Pakistani society at large is involved in mystical commitments or engagements.
But they're not mainstream, are they?
They are mainstream, but they are what's it called? The problem is with elite class, the intelligentsia, the professor, the bureaucrats. But the common people, they like Sufism, mysticism.
But do common people always have the right source as a teacher? How do we know? Because they could be going to anybody else.
Yes, each and every, I think in Pakistani society, the people, they have tutors, spiritual tutors.
So we have a good amount of avenues open to us, we just need to go and explore them.
But we do not know them. Each and every, in each and every community, if you study them, sociologically, anthropologically, we have a bulk of people, they are linked with tutors.
Okay, now the interesting thing is that in our parliament we actually have a lot of politicians who are Gadi Nasheens or who are coming from a Pir, who are coming from a Sufi lineage. And we had the Prime Minister talking about how Sufism should be used to quell angst in society. But what can the politicians do about it, do you think? They have the right background, they have the right access.
The politicians, they have a background, but they have not that
inclination,
philosophical linkage with Sufism, that intellectual. Unless and until a person is linked intellectually and spiritually and also existentially with Sufism, no change occurs. It is just a play with words. We are talking about Sufism, but we do not know its essence, its reality. Sufism, as a doctor told with reference to Iqbal, is a highly specialized field. Its inner core is not accessible to common people. When we talk about the theory of relativity as propounded by Dr. Einstein, laymen can't understand it. Even a person with PhD in mathematics.
But it's taught in every school and it's a part of every curriculum. So when we study it again and again, eventually everyone starts understanding it.
But if we make mysticism a part of our curriculum with reference to our Pakistani mystics or the whole subcontinent, of course then by and large, as you said, then like theory of relativity, we can be acquainted, we may be acquainted with mysticism. But there is a lot of misunderstanding about mysticism. We say that it is just, it creates a kind of otherworldliness, it is opium. It's not like that. Allama Iqbal explained mystic reality and experience in 6 and 7 points in his famous book, Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam. The first point is that the immediacy of mystic experience, which means that we have knowledge of God exactly as we have knowledge of other things. The first point. The second is the unanalyzable wholeness of mystic experience, which brings the mystic into contact with the total passage of reality in which all the diverse of stimuli merge into one another and form a single analyzable unity in which the ordinary distinction of subject and object does not exist. The third is that the mystic state as experienced by the mystic is a moment of close contact with a unique other self which transcends, engulfs and figuratively inhibits the private personality of the experiencing individual. The fourth is the incommunicability of mystic experience due to its being a realm of inarticulate feeling untouched by discursive intellect, which has a cognitive element too, due to which it allows itself to be expressed in thought and translated into categories of understanding. The fifth point is that during the mystic direct encounter with the eternal, it dawns on him that serial time is unreal, yet he does not part completely with the serial time, and his mystic state in regard to its uniqueness remains somehow in touch with common experience, and it leaves a deep authoritative impression on his personality after it soon fades away. Both the prophet and the mystic come back to the normal states of consciousness. And he further says that this the seventh, that the domain of mystic experience is cognitively as real as any other domain of human experience and cannot be dismissed or ignored simply on the ground that it is not traceable to sense perception, nor is it logically possible to undo or discredit the spiritual value of mystic experience and state as a revelation of truth by assuming the postulate of psychophysical parallelism to be true. So there are many points, but Allama Iqbal explains it very scientifically, that mysticism is a super science. In his reconstruction uses of science.
So if we bring Sufism into the curriculum, how can we be sure that somewhere down the line someone won't misuse Sufism in the name of terrorism also?
No, I think it is not possible. When we introduce mysticism, of course, Jalaluddin Rumi and Shams Tabriz and Ibn Arabi, with reference to those ideas which they generate, a new type of personality would emerge, a new individual. I think there will be a new dawn, a dawn of a new era. If you introduce mystic ideas and concept into our curriculum, I'm 100% sure there will be a positive result generated.
As long as it's a proper study and it's introduced in a proper manner.
Because if you study all those great people, including Allama Iqbal. Allama Iqbal was a mystic and Sufi, but he was not a terrorist, a violent individual.
Okay, we'll end it on that note, that he was a Sufi and he was not a terrorist. Like we're hearing nowadays how Shah Rukh Khan is not a terrorist. Thank you very much, Dr. Qalandar, for sharing your study of Sufism with us. Viewers, the point is that we are a society which is increasingly vulnerable to terrorism. Some would say that it's a phenomena which is seeped into our society as part of special circumstances, since this is a region which is prone to conflict and has been facing conflict for a long time. So Sufism could be part of the solution, especially if we undertake it in a proper studied manner and not in a superstitious manner which is generally prevalent. It could bring us back to the ethos of peace and multiculturalism and harmony, which were actually quite common in this part of the world before we succumbed to foreign ideologies. On that note, we finished today's program. Thank you for watching us. For feedback, you can write us at flashpoint@ptv.com.pk. Until next weekend, goodbye.